The last message from Ugarit. A city's final hours. Imagine you are sitting at your desk. Your city is burning outside the window. Enemy ships are in the harbor. Your army is gone, sent to fight someone else's war. Your navy is gone, patrolling someone else's coast. And you are alone. So you do the only thing you can. You pick up a lump of wet clay. You press a stylus into it. And you write, "Help us. The enemy is here. We have nothing left." You hand the tablet to a messenger. The messenger runs toward the kill to fire it for shipment. He never makes it out of the building. That tablet was found in 1929. Still in the kill. Still unbaked. The message was never sent. And the city it came from ceased to exist. This is one of the most haunting stories in all of human history. His name was Ammurapi. He was the last king of Ugarit. He ruled from around 1215 BC until approximately 1180 BC. 35 years on the throne of one of the wealthiest cities in the ancient world. And here is the first thing you need to understand about Ammurapi. He was young when all of this happened. The Hittite records describe him as immature, not yet experienced enough to handle the diplomatic demands being placed on him. Think about that for a moment. A young king, an inexperienced ruler, sitting on the throne of a city that was about to be erased. The letters he left behind, and there are several, paint a portrait of a man watching his world collapse in real time. Not a warrior. Not a conqueror. A frightened young king writing letter after letter to anyone who would listen. And nobody came. Let me read you his own words. This is a real letter. Written by Ammurapi himself. Around 1180 BC. To the king of Alatia, modern-day Cyprus. My father, behold, the enemy's ships came here. My cities were burned. They did evil things in my country. Does not my father know that all my troops and chariots are in the land of Hatti? And all my ships are in the land of Lucca? Thus, the country is abandoned to itself. May my father know it, 7 ships of the enemy came here and inflicted much damage upon us. 7 ships. Not a fleet of hundreds. Not an unstoppable armada. 7 ships. And they burned everything. Because there was nobody left to stop them. Before we go further, you need to understand what was lost. Because Ugarit was not just another city. It was the Venice of the Bronze Age. Situated on the northern coast of Syria, about 10 kilometers north of modern Latakia, Ugarit sat at the intersection of every major trade route in the ancient world. From Egypt. From Mesopotamia. From the Aegean. From Cyprus. From Anatolia. From Canaan. Every ship, every merchant, every diplomat, they all passed through Ugarit. At its height, Ugarit was incomprehensibly wealthy. Archaeologists found gold, ivory, lapis lazuli, ebony. They found wine jars from Cyprus and pottery from Mycenaean Greece. They found texts written in 7 different scripts. 7 languages. In one city. Think about what that means. Walk through the markets of Ugarit in 1300 BC, and you would hear Greek, Akkadian, Egyptian, Hittite, Ugaritic, Hurrian, and Sumerian. All on the same street. This was the most cosmopolitan city in the world. A place where civilizations traded, argued, made deals, fell in love, and built something extraordinary together. And they invented something there that you are using right now. The Ugaritic alphabet, one of the earliest alphabetic writing systems ever created. 30 symbols. Simple enough for a merchant to learn quickly. Powerful enough to record everything from business contracts to epic poetry. The Bull Cycle, one of the oldest pieces of literature ever found, was written in Ugarit. Myths that would later influence the Bible, Greek mythology, and Phoenician culture were first written down in this city. This was not a village. This was not a small trading post. This was a civilization. And it disappeared in a single generation. Now here is where the story gets uncomfortable. Because the collapse of Ugarit did not happen overnight. There were warnings. Many of them. For years. The first warning came from the sea. A letter, one of the earliest in the archive, describes enemy ships appearing on the horizon. Not attacking yet. Just appearing. Watching. Circling. Ammurapi wrote to Eshuwara, the senior governor of Alashia, ships of the enemy have been seen at sea. And here is Eshuwara's response, and I want you to pay attention to this, because it is extraordinary. As for the matter concerning those enemies, the people from your country and your own ships did this. And the people from your country committed these transgressions. Wait. What? The governor of Cyprus is telling Ammurapi that the people raiding his coastline might be coming from Ugarit itself. Former citizens. Former sailors. Former traders. People who had lost everything in the economic collapse and turned to piracy to survive. This is not an alien invasion. This is a society eating itself. Meanwhile, the army is gone. Sent north to support the Hittite Empire in their endless wars. The navy is gone. Patrolling the coast of Lucca, modern-day Lycia in Turkey. The grain warehouses are depleted. The trade routes are disrupted. Ugarit is a wealthy city with no defenses. A treasure chest with no lock. And the wolves are circling. Now we get to the letters. The ones found in the ruins of Ugarit. The ones that were never sent. The ones that have been sitting underground for 3,000 years waiting for someone to read them. And I want you to understand something about these letters. They were not found in a museum. They were not preserved in some royal archive. They were found in a kiln. A clay-firing kiln. Because somebody was trying to bake them for shipment. And the city was destroyed before they could finish. The messenger never walked out the door. Let me take you through the final correspondence of a dying city. Letter 1. Ammurapi writes to the Hittite viceroy at Carchemish. This is his boss, the most powerful man still standing in the region. To the king, my lord, say thus, Ammurapi, your servant. I wrote to you twice, 3 times, with news regarding the enemy. May my lord know that now the enemy forces are stationed at Rashu. Their advance guard has been sent to Ugarit. Now may my lord send me forces and chariots. May my lord save me from the forces of this enemy. Rashu. That is the other port city of Ugarit. The enemy has already taken it. They are at the gates. And Ammurapi is not asking for a miracle. He is asking for soldiers. He is asking for chariots. He is saying, please. I am your servant. Help me. Letter 2. The viceroy of Carchemish responds. He actually sends troops. But look at this letter, found after the destruction. When your messenger arrived, the army was humiliated and the city was sacked. Our food in the threshing floors was burnt. The vineyards were also destroyed. The troops arrived. But Ugarit was already gone. They came too late. By hours. Maybe by days. Too late. Letter 3. And this is the one that breaks your heart. This is the letter that was still in the kiln. Still unbaked. Still wet. Never sent. Ammurapi writing to the king of Alashia one final time. And this time he is not asking for military help. He is describing what is already happening around him. His cities are burning. His people are fleeing. The enemy ships are in the harbor. And he is sitting there, this young king, writing a letter that no one will ever read. For 3,000 years. Now let's talk about how we know any of this. Because the story of how Ugarit was rediscovered is almost as remarkable as the story of its destruction. It is 1928. Northern Syria. Near the coastal town of Latakia. A farmer is ploughing his field. His plough catches on something. He stops. Looks down. It is a stone. A carved stone. He digs a little. There is more. He reports it to the authorities. French archaeologists arrive. And what they find changes everything we know about the ancient world. The ruins of a city, perfectly preserved under the sand. Streets, houses, a palace, temples, and tablets. Thousands of tablets, written in a script nobody has ever seen before. The lead archaeologist is Claude Schaefer. He will spend the next 40 years excavating this site. But it is actually a worker named Mohammed Morsel who first puts his hands on the tablets. His name is rarely mentioned in the textbooks. But it was his hands that touched history first. The tablets are in 7 different scripts, written in languages that range from well-known Akkadian to a completely unknown writing system, Ugaritic. Scholars crack the Ugaritic alphabet within a year. And what they find inside these tablets is extraordinary. Not just administrative records, not just trade receipts, epic poetry, mythology, diplomatic correspondence, and letters. Those desperate, unanswered letters from the last king of a dying city. Schaefer writes later that when they found the final unfinished tablet in the kill, the room went silent. Because they understood what they were looking at. Not just an archaeological artifact. A moment frozen in time. A city's last breath preserved in wet clay. Here is the question that historians have been arguing about ever since: what exactly destroyed Ugarit? And the honest answer is, we don't know for certain. But we have some very strong evidence. Theory 1. The Sea Peoples. This is the traditional explanation. Ammurapi's letters mention enemy ships. The destruction layer at Ugarit contains arrowheads and ash. It is violent. It is sudden. It is total. The Sea Peoples, based on what we know from Egyptian records, were operating in exactly this region at exactly this time. But here is the problem. Ammurapi mentions only 7 ships. 7 ships do not destroy the Venice of the Bronze Age. Unless the city has no defenses left. Which brings us to Theory 2. Theory 2. Systemic collapse. Ugarit did not fall to an invading army. Ugarit fell because the entire system it depended on had already collapsed. The Hittite Empire, gone. Cyprus, under attack. The trade routes, severed. The grain supply, depleted by years of drought. The army and navy, sent away and never returned. Without the system, Ugarit was nothing. A wealthy, cosmopolitan, extraordinarily sophisticated city that could not function without the network that sustained it. And when that network collapsed, when the ships stopped coming, when the grain stopped arriving, when the diplomats stopped writing, Ugarit became an empty shell. Wealthy but helpless. And 7 ships were enough. Theory 3. Internal collapse plus external attack. This is what most modern scholars believe. The city was already dying from within: economic collapse, food shortages, population displacement, when the final blow came from outside. Archaeology tells us that the destruction was violent. But it also tells us that it was not followed by looting and occupation. The attackers did not stay. They burned and left. Which suggests they were not conquerors looking for territory. They were desperate people looking for food, for resources, for somewhere to go. Sound familiar? After 1180 BC, something extraordinary happens. Nothing. Ugarit is not rebuilt. It is not resettled. It is not even looted systematically. It is simply abandoned. For 400 years. For centuries of silence. For centuries during which the entire Eastern Mediterranean enters what historians call the Dark Ages of the ancient world. Cities disappear. Writing disappears. Trade disappears. Population collapses. The sophisticated, interconnected, multilingual world of the Bronze Age is replaced by something much simpler, much smaller, much more isolated. Other cities fell and were rebuilt. Other kingdoms collapsed and rose again. But not Ugarit. Why? The honest answer is that we don't know. Maybe the location lost its strategic value when the trade route shifted. Maybe the survivors scattered so completely that no community remained to reclaim and rebuild. Maybe the trauma was so total, so absolute, that nobody wanted to go back. There is something devastating about that silence. Other ruins in the ancient world echo with continuity. People kept coming back, kept building on top of the ruins. But Ugarit just stopped. Mid-sentence. Mid-letter. Mid-kill. It is the ancient world's version of a ghost town. Except it never came back. Here is what I want you to think about. The city is gone. Has been for 3,000 years. But what it created, what those people invented in those markets and palaces and workshops, is still with us. The alphabet you are reading this in? Its ancestor was invented in Ugarit. Not the exact same alphabet, but the concept. The idea that you could take human language and represent it with a small number of symbols that anyone could learn. That revolutionary idea, which we now take completely for granted, was being worked out in Ugarit around 1400 BC. The Phoenicians, who inherited Ugarit's trade routes and cultural legacy, took that alphabet and spread it across the Mediterranean. The Greeks adapted it and added vowels. The Romans adapted the Greek version. And here we are. Every letter in this sentence traces its ancestry back to a city that was destroyed 32 centuries ago. The stories they told in Ugarit also survived. The Bull Cycle, a mythological epic found on tablets in Ugarit, describes a god who dies and is resurrected. A battle between order and chaos. A divine council that makes decisions about the fate of the world. These themes appear in the Bible. They appear in later Phoenician mythology. They appear, transformed and adapted, in Greek and Roman religion. Ugarit was erased. But its ideas were not. They spread, carried by survivors, by traders, by refugees, into every culture that came after. The people who wrote those desperate letters in 1180 BC had no idea that their words would outlast their city by 3 millennia. That archaeologists would dig them up in 1929 and scholars would spend their entire careers trying to understand them. They just wanted help. They just wanted someone to send soldiers. They just wanted to survive the night. I told you at the beginning that this is one of the most haunting stories in history. And I want to tell you why I actually believe that. It is not just the drama of it. It is not just the tragedy of those unfinished letters. It is this: Ugarit was one of the most sophisticated, connected, cosmopolitan places on Earth. And it was destroyed not by a great invading army, not by a military genius with a superior strategy, but by the failure of the system it depended on. When the supply chains broke, Ugarit starved. When the trade routes closed, Ugarit lost its income. When its allies were overwhelmed, Ugarit had nobody to call. When desperate people showed up at its harbor, Ugarit had no army to stop them. And the people who showed up at the harbor? They were not monsters. They were refugees. Displaced people. Desperate people. People whose own cities had already burned. The entire eastern Mediterranean was collapsing at once. And everyone was either fleeing or fighting. And sometimes both. We live in the most interconnected world in human history. More connected than Ugarit. Infinitely more connected. Which means, if you are paying attention, more vulnerable too. The supply chains that feed us. The trade routes that sustain our economies. The political systems that maintain order. None of them are permanent. None of them are guaranteed. They exist because we maintain them. Because we choose to maintain them. Ammurapi chose to write. He chose to ask for help. He chose to believe that the system would hold. It did not. The past breathes. The city of Ugarit was discovered by accident. A farmer's plough. A carved stone. A curious archaeologist. And the last letters of a dying civilization waiting 3,000 years to finally be read. Ammurapi never got his answer. But we have his letters. We know his name. We know what he lost. And that, somehow, feels important. Next time, we step back even further. What did the world look like before all of this? What were people living, trading, and building in 1300 BC, 100 years before everything collapsed? The world before the collapse. What was lost, and why it mattered? Subscribe. And if this story stayed with you, leave a comment. Tell me what part hit hardest. I read every single one. See you next time.